I was always like joking with my team, like, oh, if we look back, right, building this data platform, it's like climbing a high mountain, right? And you can't reach the top within a day or two. And for Box case, we didn't reach the top within a year. We spent like a couple of years to get where we are today, especially talking about the entire cloud migration we did in the past couple of years.
Shuang, it's great to have you on the show.
Nice meeting you again, Adele. I'm very excited to be on the show.
Awesome. So you are the group product manager at Box, where you lead the building of the data platform there. So maybe to set the stage, what got you into this role and how do you become a data product manager?
In my career, I have been always passionate about what's made possible by data, ML, and AI, including optimizations, insights, and predictions. So when I was doing my PhD in computer science at the Ohio State University, I was doing actually a lot of theoretical research. And then the summer, it's like the year before my graduation, I got an internship at Qualcomm. So that was my first exposure to industry. And I was very interested actually in the project I was working on. So it's basically uplifting the user experience of streaming media over wireless networks by developing a machine learning-based algorithm. So I got very excited about that project because I was thinking, this algorithm would be very likely running on the cell phones of millions of people. So that's the first transition into my career. I decided to join Google as a software engineer instead of staying in academia. So that's the first transition. And then my second transition actually also happened at Google. So I joined Google Fiber. It's like a startup inside a big company. So our mission was to bring the high-speed internet to households. So it was a small team, and I was actually working with people from, different functions, like product managers, business development, marketing, all these different people. And I got into customer calls together with our product manager. I was amazed about how he asked questions, trying to understand the pain points of the customers, and then wrote requirements document to solve the problems for our customers. So then I transitioned gradually into product management because I got very interested in this area. So that was my second transition. So over the past few years, I've been in product management, in payment, in electric vehicle charging, and also in big data, cloud, machine learning, and AI. So my third transition actually happened about 3 years ago when I became a group product manager at Box. So I was hired to build and lead a team of product managers to build the Box data platform. So it's like over my career journey so far, right? 3 transitions, but I've been always very interested in big data, ML, and AI. So that's how I got here.
So maybe let's jump into the meat of today's discussion, Shuang. If we first focus maybe on, building a data platform, specifically the why behind building a data platform. So maybe walk us through first what exactly is a data platform, dispel any, myths about it, and why organizations should invest in building one.
So when you talk about a data platform, right, you ask different people, they may give you different answers. But I think what's in common is overall, it's the high-scale data infra every company builds to solve the business problems for the company, right? So I hope that's brief enough because, you can have different variations depending on which company or which industry you are in, right? But in terms of why, right? So I can maybe share a little bit more about the story at Box, right? So when I first joined Box about 3 years ago, we didn't have a data platform because we call them like data infra, different teams, right? They work in data silos. So they had their different data infra. They had a dedicated set of people managing the data infra, managing all the data. And it's really hard to scale at that time. And also, there was no way for these different teams to share data. They work in silos. And not to mention, okay, can you guarantee the right performance of your data infra? And there's cost challenges there, right? It's hard to scale reliability, quality, all these problems. So I believe if we talk about the why here, right, you think about without it, what would happen, right, to a company? So I think essentially, like I mentioned before, right, we want to have this right scale, the high scale data infra. So for Box, right, maybe I can share a few numbers so people can understand a bit more. So for Box, we are a content cloud company. We have millions of users and we manage billions of objects. So when I talk about objects, these are like files, folders, and other kind of objects customers store in the Box content cloud, right? And they interact with these files and folders all the time. Think about all the downloads, uploads, editing, deletions, right? So imagine that kind of scale, like you have all the user activity data, metadata, file information you need to manage, right? If we work in data silos, we just have teams managing their own data infra. It's a really hard problem we're solving. So it's very important to build such high-scale data infra to solve the business problems for the company. So hopefully, yeah, that's something people can resonate when they hear about this.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's hard to imagine as well, like a company like Box that operating at such high scale of data as well, not needing something like a data platform, right? So, and then when you reflect on your experiences kind of leading the data platform group so far at Box, you mentioned you joined 3 years ago. A lot of work has happened since then. What do you think are kind of key components of building an effective data platform? What makes a data platform successful?
So that's actually, I think, the core of data platform. So I always want to keep things simple, right? But like you said, what are the key components here? Maybe that's where we start when we build a data platform, and then we can build on top of that. So these are like the building blocks of a data platform. So I think essentially, right, we want to get the data in, right, and then make it available for different teams across the company to consume the data. And then you need to have a pipeline, right, to get the data in. That's the data ingestion pipeline. But you need to think about all the data sources you have at the company, right? It could be on your platform, like it's other teams. They are, let's say, storing the transactional data, but they need to get data ingested into your data platform for other teams to consume, right? It could also be some third-party tools, let's say your marketing team or customer success team are using. So it's off-platform data. It's another type of data source, but you need to figure out for those data sources, how do you build the right ingestion pipeline to get the data in your data platform, right? So I think the first key component is the ingestion pipeline in my mind. And second, you need to be able to process the data, right? It could be the ETL pipeline, right? We work together with our data engineering team to build that. But beyond that, right, there are teams who want to use your data processing capabilities, right? So probably you get the data in for them, but they want to do some further processing, like application-specific objects. So they probably want to use your batch compute or stream compute capabilities, right? So at Box, right, we have streaming use cases for sure, both on the infra side and also on customer-facing side. So for example, we have a security product team. Their job is to basically detect anomaly of user activities. Let's say, oh, your company only operates in these regions, but you found some downloads, actually hundreds of downloads within a second from a region you have never seen before. So that's suspicious location or suspicious activity, right? They want to detect right away, or we say near real time. So that's when stream compute come into the picture. And that team will need to leverage the stream compute capability we have on data platform. So that's the second key component, data processing. So it could go batch, stream, or you could have both. And I think the third key component, I think maybe people talk about that all the time, is the most it's the core of the core, data lake, right? Once you ingest data, process it properly, you need to store it, manage it somewhere. And then you need to support all the use cases for your customers. Here I talk about internal customers, but of course, they build products or they build analytics for external customer or leadership for those dashboards, right? So we need to, choose the right tool, the right technology, and then we need to innovate on top of that for sure, right? There's performance, there's cost, but of course, the feature set you have in mind. So then to summarize, right, the three key components I have in mind is data ingestion pipeline, data processing capabilities, and also data lake.
Okay, that's really great. And there's so much to tease out here. Maybe kind of focusing on that ingestion pipeline, right? Maybe, for an organization like Box, walk us through the complexities of trying to capture all those data sources. How do you approach it, especially where you're building out early in the data platform journey?
So I briefly mentioned all the data sources, right? We have on-platform data sources. So it's like, some transactional data we capture in some relational databases. But, they couldn't make it available for downstream teams to do all the analytics, right? Or build products. It's very hard to do it there. So that's one of the biggest data sources we need to figure out, right? And then there are other, data sources like, there's some metadata we store, right, in other places. And beyond that, there's some events data, like user activities, downloads, uploads, which we call enterprise events. That's another data source. So I think we have at least, like 10 on-platform data sources. But on the, kind of marketing and customer success or data science side, they leverage some third-party pipelines. We use SnapLogic actually, to get the data in. And then you have to manage like, if you only build one pipeline, right? It's not like one size fits all. You need to figure out how you get data from different sources. They're in different formats. They probably have different SLA requirements. And we need to figure all these out. And I think I mentioned the scale we are operating at Box, right? Imagine those millions of users interacting with their billions of objects every day, right? Think about the scale.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And then, the second kind of component that you mentioned is the processing pipeline here, which, I'll assume the data engineering team here is managing it and building these ETL pipelines. Maybe walk me through here, how integral is the relationship between, the product management team here and the data engineering team? And how do you build out those ETL pipelines in a way that satisfy all the requirements that you have, whether for downstream users or, to make sure that, the right security levels are in place? Maybe walk me through the nuances of building effective ETL pipelines in such a circumstance.
I'm a product manager. I have a team of product managers working on data platform. We have engineers. We call them data platform engineers. But the third party you talk about is this data engineering team. So they are not part of us. They're not part of data platform, but we're in this partnership together. So for Box case, it's it's probably more complex than we all thought in the beginning of this conversation. Because 3 years ago when I joined, we didn't have a decent data platform. But at the same time, the entire company was starting the migration to the cloud. So it's like we have been building the data platform together with doing the cloud migration. It's a great thing, right? By migrating to the cloud, you can build the right data platform leveraging cloud native solutions, but it also adds complexity to the project or to the program we are managing, right? So, of course, data engineering team, we engage them very early in this journey. So we always have like all the discussions together because we always think they're part of us. We're doing this all together. So even today, after we already finished cloud migration, we're kind of brainstorming together on what's next, right? So in this journey, like data engineering team, so this is basically how a company structure the team. So in Box, it happened that data engineering is part of the our go-to-market org. So they have a lot of close interaction with our marketing, customer success. So those are like the teams not as part of product and engineering, but they have this good relationship with them. So, building relationship with your stakeholders in all the, data platform, building a data platform or in the cloud migration is super important. So they are like our partners. They work with those marketing and customer success. So, of course, I was deeply involved in all those conversations together with my team of product managers. So we figure out, probably they have different use cases on the marketing side because they need to use the data to run marketing campaign. They want to find the right target of customers, right, to run the campaign. And also on the business side, right, for business analytics, they want to create dashboards to track our revenue, to do the churn forecast. Those are very different use cases from, let's say, the security product team. They want to just detect anomaly of the content of the customers, right? Those are very different use cases, different SLA and different scale, different, for example, when do they expect the data to arrive, right? Those are different things probably from what other product teams are expecting. So we need to understand all these use cases across the company because basically the entire Box, all the teams are customers, internal customers of data platform. So I believe in this journey, we really enjoy the partnership with data engineering. So they are part of us, but they kind of help us broaden our relationship, the engagement of different internal customers.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. I think this is the first time I hear of a data engineering team being part of a go-to-market team, but it's pretty interesting to see how the interlock works. And maybe kind of switching gears here a bit, let's start at the very beginning, right? Like when you started building the data platform at Box, maybe what were some of the key steps and milestones in building the data platform? You know, if you were to zoom out outside of Box, right? What advice would you give for those looking to build a data platform right now? Where do you start?
Yeah, I was always like joking with my team, like, oh, if we look back, right, building this data platform, it's like climbing a high mountain, right? And you can't reach the top within a day or two. And for Box case, we didn't reach the top within a year. We spent like a couple of years to get where we are today, right? Especially talking about the entire cloud migration we did in the past couple of years. So like I mentioned, when I joined, we were in the very early phase of the migration to the cloud. So it's not just data platform, it's the entire company. We were doing the cloud migration. And data platform is one of the foundational teams. So we kind of went first in this cloud journey. So after we finished together with other platform teams, our service teams, applications team, they could start doing the migration because their services have been built on top of those platform, the services of platform teams. So I think in the very beginning, right, we need to, of course, identify the key first steps. For the entire company, of course, it's about, platform teams. You guys need to go first, and then other teams can build on top of you guys. But then if we talk about data platform in specific, right, we need to identify the problem we had at that time, right? I think for everybody, it was very clear. We were working in data silos. Every team had to allocate resources to build, maintain their own data infra. And sometimes, there's data inaccuracy, right? And they have to figure it out by ourselves. And let's say product analysts, they were expecting data for their monthly active user, weekly active user dashboard, but data didn't come through. Where's the problem, right? They have to figure out by relying on their own resources. So all these things, there was no single source of truth, right, at that time. So that's the biggest problem. So that's why we kind of identified a goal and align with all these stakeholders by talking to them constantly, right? So we need to build this consolidated data platform, right? Get all the data in one place, build robust, scalable, reliable ingestion pipelines, right? Provide the right data processing capabilities to all these teams. So that's, I think, very important in the very beginning. I think you also mentioned do you want me to share any advice with other companies?
Yeah, I'd love if you can share advice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think alignment is very important. That's the most important thing. So for our case, we're basically dealing with the entire company. So there's the product, engineering, marketing, customer success, right? The entire go-to-market is in this picture as well. And we have product support. They are also using data platform. With our compliance team, they need to store the data, set a specific retention period for auditing. And then our data science, data engineering team, product analytics, business analytics. So it's a lot of team we're dealing with. Getting alignment, right? Not just in the early phase, but of course, getting it in alignment in the early phase is super important. But along the way, you need to constantly talk to them, because sometimes it requires realignment. Things change, right? They probably have some different use cases, or the way you thought things would work didn't. So those are all the things. But overall, it's all about alignment. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I really like the analogy of climbing a mountain that you use here because, you can extend that analogy and say, okay, like the mountain is very high, but it has multiple peaks along the way. And you want to arrive at the first peak, the second peak, the third peak. So maybe, when we're talking here about the different peaks, how do you chunk up, the massive journey of building a data platform to these small, iterative goals that are achievable in the short term? How do you define those over time?
It's actually not easy for sure, right? It's a company-wide program, right? Everybody is deeply involved in this. But then, it's overwhelming, right? In the beginning, for Box case, we were not on the cloud, right? Not many people had cloud experience, not to mention the best practices in the cloud, right? If we are let's just adopt everything, all the cloud services, all at a time. Nobody could do that, right? It's really hard. So we're trying to make things simple, right? We're trying to build in an iterative way. So we worked very closely with our architect group. So Box, we have an architect leadership group. There's all the principal and distinguished architects in this group. So we work very closely with them along the journey. And even today, right, after we finish, we have all the architectural discussions with them. So we identified 2 groups of use cases overall, right? Think about all those different use cases and stakeholders, but we just divide them into 2. Group 1 is about uplift. Group 2 is about lift and shift. So when we talk about uplift, right, think about, our end goal, right? We need to build the right architecture to handle high scale data processing in the cloud, right? But lift and shift is just, we want to optimize the delivering time while meeting the needs. And probably we'll come back later and see what we can do. There would be some technical debt, but that's how we need to operate in order to meet the timeline of the cloud migration or some other goal set by the company. So I think, trying to make things simple is really important here in this journey.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you mentioned something here is that if you want to adopt all of the cloud tools at the same time, that's not necessarily possible. Maybe when it comes to technology choices, such as databases, frameworks, which cloud provider to choose, et cetera, how do you make those decisions? How do you approach these trade-offs?
So at Box, right, we always have this debate when we talk about, different choices, tools, technologies, or services, right? Build versus buy, right? You need to answer this question every time. So we would look at, of course, feature set, right? These are the use cases we have in mind. Can this tool have all the right features for us to solve these problems? And cost is another thing, right? If we think about, we'll buy this licensing cost, right? How much would that spend? You need to have a more or less accurate estimate on that, right? With all the forecast of your traffic in the next 2 or 3 years or even longer. And then if you build by yourself, right, it's your engineering cost. It's not like, you need to pay your engineers to build the product, right? It's not like coming free. And then there's maintenance cost, right? You build your own product, let's say probably from scratch or on some open source, but you need to maintain it all the time. It's your engineering resource for sure. But of course, if there's issues, it might be faster to troubleshoot because it's your own engineering team. They know the code, right? But if it's the vendor, right, or you have to file all the tickets, think about the back and forth. Sometimes it doesn't work well, right? So I would say if we want to go with the buy, let's say, the cost is under our budget and we like the feature set provided by the vendor, but we want to look for the long term. It's not like today, right? We have this much traffic. These are the features we want. But we need to think about long term, right? Is this vendor in the right ecosystem, right? For example, this vendor has great partnership with others, right? You probably want to expand some use cases in areas or features provided by its partners. And what is the innovation speed of this vendor, right? You may go well beyond what you are looking for this year, right? And then good partnership is important, right? Not every vendor is easy to work with. You need to look at how easy, right, to have this good partnership. And of course, so for Box, I have one more thing to add. It's about all the security requirements. So Box, our security office, has very strict security requirements. So when we pick vendors, right, we need to look at all the requirements provided by our global security office. We need to make sure they check all the boxes. So that's another important thing. So usually when we decide, we probably will go with this vendor, we'll initiate our request to that global security office very early. Because that review could take, a month or 2, right? We don't want to be like, we decide we'll use this vendor, but it end up getting declined by our security approval team. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great ideas here on the buy versus build. Maybe an additional component of building a data platform that we haven't touched upon yet here is data observability and quality, right? Which is really integral, right, to maintaining high trust in the data platform. Maybe walk me through some of the best practices that you can share here when it comes to keeping data quality up, having data observability pipelines that monitor when data breaks. I'd love to learn here kind of how you've approached that as well. And when does that come in the journey?
Well, when we were doing the migration to the cloud, right, we didn't invest much, to be honest, in this area. So actually, we structured our entire data platform and engineering team as data management versus data transformation. So you can hear from the name, they are both about foundation of data platform, right? There's not developer experience we were thinking about. So basically management, we're thinking about data at rest. So think about data lake and the ingestion pipeline. How do you get the data in, right? But of course, there are like related capabilities. I'm just trying to keep this simple. But data transformation, we're talking about data in motion, right? The ETL, the processing, right? All the capabilities and orchestration we're providing. So that's how we structured our engineering team. And of course, I have my product managers covering, providing the coverage for both teams. But once we finish the migration, we're like, oh, foundation, of course, we'll keep innovating. We'll adopt cloud native solutions. We'll adopt best practices. But how about developer experience, like what you mentioned, right? The data quality, data observability, right? Our product analyst, let's say today at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, right? They're expecting all the data in the past 24 hours so that they can show the daily active user, monthly active user dashboards, and they want to present to leadership, right? But data didn't arrive, right? Nobody told them. And they found out maybe 1 or 2 hours later, they have to, come to data platform. Data platform is like, we build and manage the pipeline. Let's check with the data source. And then we talk to another team, which keeps the transactional data, right? That's a very hard process, or no process at all. It's just, asking around, right? So we realized the problem, because that's just one of the examples on the developer experience side, right? There are many other things like how to discover data easily, right? And, can we provide a kind of a playground for teams to, have a production-like environment to play around with our capabilities on data platform before they go to production, right? So all these things fall into developer experience. And then last year, we decided, let's restructure the team here. Instead of having data management versus data transformation, both of which are in foundation, right? We have data platform foundation team versus data platform developer experience. So then it's easier to prioritize, right? Because every time when there's a developer experience request, right, that goes into the developer experience team. Then foundation will operate or execute against a separate roadmap, and then we can prioritize accordingly. So that's actually, structure goes first, right? Without the structure, we want to have data observability, everything on the roadmap, but every time they probably got deprioritized because we don't have a dedicated team investing in this. So actually, starting from last year, including this year as well, we are investing very heavily in developer experience. So I think for data observability, I briefly touched upon like data freshness, right? But I don't know. Do you want me to expand more on what we have built?
Yeah, I'd love if you can learn more. But then what I actually would like to ask, because I'll let you cover this in the next question that I'm going to ask is, what do you think are key components to a healthy developer experience for a data platform? Because freshness here is a part of it, and data observability is a part of it. But maybe expand on what makes a great developer experience for a data platform as well.
So that actually comes back to the North Star for building a data platform. Like what metrics are you measuring, right? Because for platform teams like data platform, right, you're not directly delivering customer-facing products, right? Can't use a revenue to measure, right, how good or how bad this is. But then for platform teams, right, we have actually teams across the company using your capabilities, right? Then that's your customer and you can measure. So we use time to value or time to market or time to production. So we always use these three interchangeably. That's the metric we're measuring. So let's talk about time to value. What does this mean, right? Use that security product team as an example again. They want to build a, let's say, near real-time anomaly detection product for our customers, right? Let's say they haven't used data platform at all. They need to onboard to data platform. That's the first step, right? How easy is the onboarding process? To be honest, when we first started this journey, it was extremely hard. It would take them a quarter, like 3 months, to just onboard to data platform. So they become a tenant of data platform. They can start using the capabilities. After they onboard to data platform, right? How can we make it easier for them to discover all the different capabilities of data platform, right? We should have the right documentation for them, right? Playbook, tutorials, office hours, but those are maybe artifacts together with process. So they start experimenting with those capabilities, right? Can we have the right environment for them to play with them end to end, right? Once they're ready to go from dev to production, right? How do we have this, we call shadow environment to provide production-like traffic? So you have the volume, production volume and production level diversity for them to try. And then they have this confidence, they move to production. But along this journey, there are different branches, right? For example, at a certain time point, right, they want to explore data. Is it easy for them to discover the data sets, data table, even the column, right? Yeah. And then data observability also comes into the picture, right? They run their jobs. Things happen, right? How can they troubleshoot? Or you can build some monitoring for them. They get alerts right away. And then even better, you can tell them, oh, this is the issue, or I already auto-recovered for you. So that's the next level for sure. But it's kind of like along this journey, right? Today, right, for a security product team, if they want to build a new feature from onboarding, all the exploration, experimentation, and then to production, and our customers can use it, how long does it take? So that's our North Star. And our goal is to shorten this time. So everything we're doing is to make this time shorter.
What's really wonderful about what you're saying, this resonates a lot with me because, we also have our own data platform at DataCamp, right? And one thing that is really magical about, when the data platform works is just how democratized data can be for the wider organization. I'm pretty data fluent, but I wouldn't call myself a data scientist, right? But I do know where the data I need is, and I have access to it, and I semi-production environment, I'm able to experiment with it, right? Maybe what are the key aspects of making data accessible to non-technical users? Like when it comes to data democratization, I'd love to learn here, Shuang, what are the nuances related to data democratization that anyone working on a data platform should be aware of?
Yeah, I think briefly talked about that, like the restructuring of data platform. Now we have a dedicated data platform, developer experience team. That team is dedicated to features like this, and we call data discovery. So of course, for both technical and non-technical users. So take our product analysts and the business analysts, for example. So they fall into the non-technical user category. So they got requests from product teams, sometimes from leadership, like, figuring out, can you figure out the daily active user or feature usage, product usage of this newly launched feature or product, right? So I was talking to our manager of product analytics last year. I asked him, how much time do you guys spend trying to figure this out? He told me, on average, they would spend 4 weeks on average to figuring out where the data is. Because it works today as, let's say, our software engineer from that particular team. They launch a new feature, right? They just write everything in the BigQuery table, right? No comments, no annotations. Nobody knows which table it is, except this person himself or herself. So there's not good documentation. And then for those product analysts, right, they got the request. They have to search all the Confluence pages, maybe the box documents. No luck, right? Most of the case. So they have to try out different data sets and figure out which one is the right data field they need to explore. So that's a big pain point. And that's kind of why we decided we have to invest in this area for data discovery. So now we're pushing the teams, like the owners of the the tables, to tag their table. They could add descriptions. They could tag columns. For example, this column is specifically for this new feature, and it's about the usage, something like that. And then we can have metadata management built, right, in data platform. And we're leveraging actually data catalog today for data discovery, for data observability, data lineage, all these features, and data classification as well. So I believe data catalog is a very good tool for companies who want to really invest more in their data platform developer experience.
Shuang, as we close up, I'd love to kind of discuss as well some of the challenges that you've encountered along the way that you think are really common to building a data platform, right? What would you say are the top challenges folks have that they may encounter here that are relevant to building a data platform?
A lot of challenges, right? Trying to keep things simple. So maybe I can talk about top 3. So first, I think I briefly mentioned this one. So when we build this data platform, right, while doing the cloud migration, almost everybody was new to the cloud. So in the cloud world, it's very different from on-prem. And everybody's, doing this and learning the best practices from the industry at the same time, right? So we made mistakes, but we moved forward. But it's a big challenge we were tackling back then. So that's the first one. Second one, so for this data platform we're building and in the broad cloud migration project, right? That's actually the biggest project ever of the company. So it was overwhelming for everybody. But we were able to break this overwhelming work into milestones and got alignment across the company, across different stakeholders. So that's the second challenge. Because I also share how we tackle these challenges. Otherwise, we wouldn't get here, right? And the third is about is the team morale. So for many engineers, right, they want to build new things. So there's a balance here between new feature development, or we call uplift, right, versus lift and shift. So we need to tell the right story to them, like, oh, we're doing probably lift shift for some of the components for now, but we'll come back, right? That's actually, in our data platform foundation team, that's exactly what we are doing now. We're revisiting those lift and shift we have done when we did the cloud migration. Yeah. So these are the 3 probably challenges I want to share.
Yeah, and maybe when you mention on cloud migration, right? Like I think a big trade-off that organizations face here is the trade-off between being cost-effective while also scaling, right? How do you approach that as a function as you're growing the data platform? How do you best approach kind of being cost-effective while you're growing the amount of compute that you're using, the amount of resources that you're using?
Yeah, this trade-off is it's a hard problem to solve. Again, it's like building a data platform, right? So for Box, it's very like specific. We're a SaaS company, software as a service. So we're talking about this rule of 40. It's a very important metric for SaaS companies like Box for the business health. So rule of 40 means the revenue growth together with your profit margin should be at least 40% of your revenue, right? And then you're on the right path to sustainable growth. So for data platform team, right, we contribute to the profit margin part. That's the cost, right? That's how it's translated to this business metric. So we do quarterly and also monthly as well, cost forecast. So in these forecasts, right, we need to take into account organic growth, right, the traffic, and also the new use cases. So we do budget planning based on that, right? But of course, you may go over budget, right, sometimes. And then we need to think about, shall we pay the licensing fee this year? Or we can build a working solution this year and then probably reevaluate next year when we have more budget. Because it's always like a trade-off you need to you need to like think about, right, and make the right decision. So sometimes paying for a vendor could reduce your overall cost. So to show you an example, like we're uplifting our logging pipeline, because logging pipeline is also under data platform at Box. So we could pay a vendor. The vendor could do the log aggregation for us. So in that way, we can reduce the volume, the ingestion rate to another vendor who is our logging vendor, right? So it's like we're paying for the first vendor, but it helps us to reduce the ingestion, and then we pay less for the second vendor. So in that way, we play around, right? We can still, get this vendor in, but at the same time, reduce the overall cost for the company, and also consider the scale, right, we are operating at and the growth.
Something else, a challenge that you touched upon is the story, the narrative, right, that you have to discuss with engineers when it comes to, kind of, let's say, maintenance for foundational work versus, let's say, innovation work, right? How do you maybe walk us through in a bit more depth? How do you tell that story so that people are excited by foundational work that may not be, the sexiest thing to add on a resume, but equally as important for the company's bottom line?
So at Box, right, we have 2 sets of metrics, overall for the company. So one set, of course, every team is adopting that, is the business metrics. And we call it ladder up metrics. So actually our CTO, Benkus, came up with this one. So let me briefly talk about what this is. So there are, to make it simple, 3 levels. The top level is the company level metric. So we're looking for profitable growth. That's very simple, right? Everything you contribute to that one, you're moving the needle for the company. And the second level is at the product and engineering level. But of course, for our go-to-market org, other orgs, they have their own metrics. But for product and engineering, we have 4 metrics we're tracking. I'm not gonna share with you all of them, but I can give you a big example and show you how we ladder up in the 3 levels. So this is the second level. So the third level, or we call the bottom level, most relevant to everybody, every engineer, every product manager in this org, right? So it's our own team. So for example, let's say for data platform, right? We're introducing streaming capability on data platform. So we made it work, right? So that's our kind of metric. And then the engineer working on that, they can understand, right? Oh, streaming. But then how does streaming ladder up to the product and engineering level metric? So we have this box metric called enable new use cases. By introducing streaming, right, you can build near real-time anomaly detection or some other use cases. And then that enable new use cases at the product and engineering level will ladder up to the company level for sure, profitable growth. So for every engineer, we have a metric, right? Kind of their work is a map to, and gradually they can ladder up to the top level. So then in the eyes of engineering, right, that's how I can convince them what you are doing, right, is making an impact, right? On the company. We're moving the needle here. And then at the same time, right, I think I mentioned data platform level, we have our own platform metric, right? Time to value. So by introducing this, we're reducing the onboarding time for our internal customer. We're doing a great job. So these are the 2 sets of metrics we always tell to our team or to the entire company.
Okay, that's really great. And then, as we close out our conversation, Shuang, what do you see next being for the data platform at Box? And maybe walk us through some broader data engineering trends that you see, or, data platform trends that you see happening this year.
So developer experience for sure. We're keep investing. And then we're also building some tooling and frameworks to make it even easier for teams to, interact with the data platform for insights or for innovations at scale. So we have a big group of insights products overall across Box, right? But then those teams, not everybody is a big data expert. So they have to do the aggregation. They have to use stream compute, batch compute, and then store the data somewhere and then make it available for query, right? So we build this framework to help them aggregate their data. And then they can build business logic on top of that. So that's one example I want to share. Build some frameworks, right? Maybe at the data platform level, put them in a common place, and then other teams can just, plug in and use it very, very easily, right? And then log pipeline, I mentioned that. So we're uplifting our log pipeline. So for logs, it's not a super shiny topic people are talking about, but it's very important for the company, right? It's the developer, the troubleshooting. And I think, for some companies, they even draw insights from their logs for their businesses, right? The compliance team, they use a log pipeline for auditing those use cases. So we're thinking about some tiered log pipeline. Well, you need real-time logs, right? Probably goes through one pipeline. It could be more expensive, but that's the price we need to pay. But if you only need to run some analytics, right, it could be a separate pipeline. But then there's some cold storage use case. You just store for compliance, right? You retain the data for 1 year, but you don't do a lot of analytics even. So that's some cold storage we can put in there. So that's the simple idea about building the tiered log pipeline for the company. And then, of course, AI, right? I put that one last because everybody is talking about AI these days. Yeah. So basically how AI can help data platform users do their jobs more easily. So I mentioned, data observability, right? AI can do that for sure, right? Detect anomaly in your pipeline, right? If there's a data loss, late data arrival, AI can help you figure this out. And beyond that, right? I mentioned for data discovery, we're building data catalog, right? To do the metadata management. But even better, right? I think, these days, if you go to BigQuery, you can just ask natural language kind of question directly toward your data sets, right? So that's something we can leverage for sure. So these are basically the trends I have seen and I want to share with the audience.
That is awesome. Now, as we wrap up, Shuang, do you have any final closing words to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think, data, ML, AI, these areas, they're evolving so fast, right? So like the knowledge you have built over the years could be outdated, right? when there's new technology coming up. So keep learning and then learn from others, learn from your experience. And I think, I'm very much looking forward to what's next, right? For data, for ML, and for AI.
I couldn't agree more, and that's a great way to end today's podcast. Thank you so much, Shuang, for coming on Data Framed.